A fun game is a combination of a good challenge that gives out a satisfying reward or impact for the player and fulfills a cool fantasy. And in that equation, impact is the element we want to improve if your game just feels limp and lifeless. So what can we do to improve your game juice? Well, let's find out. And also I'll use this small shooter prototype I made in order to see the effects of the methods used in this video. First is visuals, and you just can't talk about game juice without particles, just like how Danny taught us all. Particles give the player visual feedback that, hey, you made an impact, you did something in the game, and that's what makes everyone feels good. Do you know why those machine crushing videos are so popular? It's because looking at things, just even breaking is satisfying. So seeing an enemy splatter out with a big oob of blood, or seeing some dumb big explosion on screen, or just even seeing the player character landing down with dust popping off from the ground. That alone can already make your game feels 1,000 times better. So let's actually apply that in our shitty shooter. Let's spawn particles when the player jumps or lands, particles when shoot or hit the enemy, and just a big dumb explosion for good measure. Besides from particles, giving the player the power to impact the environment around them is another great way to make the experience feel a whole lot better. A dead body on the ground when an enemy is killed, or just blood everywhere. When a bullet hits a wall, leave a hole in it. When the player shoots or reload, leave an empty cartridge on the ground. All of that just emphasizes every input that the player puts into the game so much it's mind-blowing. Movement feedback is another powerful method to juice up your game. Adding in recoil when shooting, enemy getting knocked back, a muzzle effect when the gun is firing and trails behind bullets or even behind the player character can add so much value in really making the player feel all of that shooting, all of that movement. So let's add all of the things mentioned above into our game right now, and look at that. Looks and plays better already. But still needs a lot more work, so let's carry on. Also, while you're at it, just hit subscribe, because if you're still watching thus far, then hey, why not? Next is some small visual detail a lot of games have that I really like. For example, in Hollow Knight, making the enemy change color when hit or changing their animation entirely can emphasize the power that the player has. In a lot of fast-paced action or even non-action games, having the damage or score being displayed whenever there's an impact can be really satisfying if used correctly. And in other games, having shockwave or a ripple effect around a heavy object when it's dropped can make the player really feel all of that weight. One trick I think is pretty good to make your game feel more alive is to have a lot of objects move around in your scene. Make it look like an actual living thing, such as having grass moving when you walk by them. Enemies idling should have some movement as well, and it can be as simple as just making the object bigger and smaller as an animation. If you don't like that idea, then having some dust dropping from the window or the ceiling or anywhere can also be a viable option. Constant movement in a scene, even when the player doing absolutely nothing, can make them feel more immersive in this lively world they're playing. Lastly, to just really give the game that oomph, your camera also needs to do some work. Shaking the camera up whenever there's an impact, whether it's landing on the ground or shooting a gun. Any action with some camera shake can give us a great feeling that we did something big, or that we got hit by a humongous object. Besides from shakes, the camera can be used in many dynamic ways, such as in platformers, where it moves ahead of the player to reveal what's in front of them in order to act quickly. It can also be moving to frame all the action happening in the scene, or moving in a way to create a cinematic and beautiful shot. Adjusting the speed of the camera can also create a lot of cool effects. Slow motion is used in a lot of action games. It can be used while fighting or finishing off an enemy just to show how much impact or damage the player has made. Or it's just used to show off the cool animations the devs made and everything in a really stylish fashion. Either way, it both works very well. But if slow motion is a tad overkill, then pausing a frame before an impact is another great trick that a lot of big games use. Alright, done with the eyes, now the ears. Audio is often overlooked by a lot of developers. You don't really see the importance of sounds until you actually add them. Comparing this lifeless shit with this ear satisfaction shit, you can clearly see the difference. So just add sounds to everything. It can help out a lot when you're not just hearing the sounds of your PC fan, or the sound of loneliness by hearing actually fun sounds in the game. But we can add another layer to that because alright, adding sounds are good, pretty cool. But what do you do with them? Well, let's compare again. Look at this pretty repetitive gun shooting sound compared to this pitch shifting randomizing shooting sound. They're both the same shit, but the second one just feels better, and it's very simple to add as well. This randomizing and pitch shifting trick has been used in a lot of games, including that weird Italian one, just to make what you hear more varied and diverse. And oh boy, it fucking worked. And here's our result after today's video. Pretty cool, I'd say. Not the best, but definitely better than the start. Honestly, that's all I have about game feel / game juice for today. I was very inspired to make this video when I just joined a game jam all about game juice, and I did just make a game about beating this pile of meat, so check it out, as well as the other awesome entries down in the description. And while you're at it, hit that like, subscribe button with the bell, and join my Discord to chat and have fun, as well as get updates on what I do, I guess. Alright, that's all for now, goodbye.